All right, good morning. All right, so what we're going to be looking at today is solving quadratic and linear system using substitution. So we did it with two lines, with graphing and using substitution. And now we're looking at a parabola and a line using graphing, and that's what we did Monday, and now with substitution. And then early next week, we'll be reviewing, and then we'll have some type of assessment middle of next week. And we'll also plan maybe for a Google Meet on Tuesday to go over any questions. So be preparing for that. All right, so our steps, and I will post copies of this. So our steps are to set each equation equal to each other. So for all the ones that we're going to be looking at, the equations are going to be y equals. And you're going to take what y equals and you're going to set those two things equal to each other. Then it's going to be a quadratic equation. So you're going to make the equation equal to 0. And then you're going to use the quadratic formula to solve for x. So I've also posted our quadratic formula song so that you can review using that. And then you plug your x's in to find your y. So I'm going to go over a few examples today. All right, so here we have our two equations. This one's quadratic because it has the x squared. This one is the linear because it doesn't. So we could go through graphing both of those and see where they intersect. Again, sometimes it's not easy to see where they intersect, so we know that substitution is a method we can do that. So what we're going to do is we're going to set these two things that y equals equal to each other. So x squared minus 4x plus 4 equal to negative x plus 2. So we take the y's out of it for now and set those two things equal. Then I need this equation to equal 0. So I want to move these things over. Remember, when I move them over to the other side, we did this with quadratics before, it changes the sign. So when I move this negative x over here, that changes it to a positive x. And when I move this plus 2 over here, it means it a minus 2. So I don't have anything to go with this x squared, so I bring it down. Negative 4x plus a positive x would give me a negative 3x. And a 4 minus 2 would give me a positive 2. Then once those things are gone, that equals 0. Then we're going to use quadratic formula. I'm going to write it over here so we can remember it. Negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So here a is 1, b is negative 3, c is 2. So I plug in negative b's already negative, so it becomes positive, plus or minus the square root of, and I've always put everything in parentheses under there, minus 4 times a times c over 2 times a. Now I know most of you are having to use Desmos, so I'm going to pull this up in order to show you and remind you how to type it in. Alright, so I type 3 divided by to get my fraction. Then I go back up here and I put plus, and then I need my square root. Oh, it's not on the top there. Oh, there. Square root. I want to make sure that's all in the numerator. Parentheses, negative 3 squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2 times a. So I get 2. So x equals 2. And then I just click back up here and change that to minus. And I get 1. Alright, so the two places that this parabola and line are going to intersect are when x is 2 and when x is 1. So now how do we figure out what y is? This is the easiest equation to use. So I'm going to take 2 and I'm going to plug it in for that x. So that would be negative and then 2 plus 2. So I get negative 2 plus 2 is 0. So this would be at the point 2, 0 is one part. And then the other one is 1. So I plug in 1. Negative 1 plus 2 is 1. So I get 1, 1. So these are my two solutions. So that parabola and that line, they cross at 2, 0 and 1, 1. Actually, it would probably look more like that. Huh? All right, so let's go through another one so that we can see. It seems like a lot, but it's the exact same steps over and over and over every time. So let's go through another example. So first thing we do is we set what y equals these two things equal to each other. Then we make the equation equal to 0. So when I move this over, that's a plus 2x. And that's a minus 5. So when I move it over, that's a plus 5. That's gone when we do that because it's like the opposite. So that's 0. Or when you move it over, remember it changes the sign. So nothing to go with the x squared. The 6x and 2x will give me 8x. And 7 and 5 will give me 12. So my a is 1. My b is 8. My c is 12. So now I plug into the quadratic formula. Negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2 times a. So then I go back and I type that in. So negative 8 divided by, and I go back up there. And I just type in what I had written down. And I get negative 6. And then I go back and do the minus. And I get negative 2. You can get decimals on these also. Although I don't think on anything that we're doing today you will get a decimal. Alright, so then I take this equation, the linear one, and I plug in because that's the easiest. So y equals negative 2x. Here x is negative 6 minus 5. And that's going to give me 7. So at the point negative 6, 7 is one solution. And then I plug in negative 2. So negative 2 times negative 2 minus 5 is going to give me negative 1. So negative 2, negative 1 is my other solution. Alright, so I'm going to do one more example of doing just those same exact steps in that order. Alright, so I take what y equals there and I set those two things equal to each other. Then I move these things over to the other side by changing their sign. So plus 28x minus 36, and that makes that 0. Bring down the x squared, negative 13 plus 28 would give me 15x. 14 minus 36. Actually, I wrote that wrong. Let's make this a minus 36. Sorry. So that would be add 36, so that's going to give me 50. Then I plug in the quadratic formula. A is 1, B is 15, C is 50. So negative b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2 times a. Then I plug that in. Alright, so we get negative 10. Change that to a minus. We get negative 5. So then I plug in here. So y equals negative 28x. X is negative 10 minus 36. So we plug that in. And we get 244. So that's a big one. So we get negative 10, comma 244. And then we plug in negative 5 for x. And that gives us 104. So negative 5, 104 is our other answer. All right, so those are our two solutions. So same process every time. Take these two things, set them equal. Move what's over here to here, make it equal 0. Find your A, B, and C, do quadratic formula. Get those answers, plug back in. So I know it's a few steps, so I'm not going to give you very many today. But please ask questions. Send me your work. Like if you want to do one and then say, hey, Miss Adams, will you check this before I do another one? That is a really great idea. I should be sitting by the computer most of the day, or I'll get a notification and go straight to it. All right. Can't wait to see you all again, and have a good day.